Hi, John here for yet another Sunday. Can you believe where these weeks go? And not too many now until Christmas. Don't mention it. So, I done a video some time ago, and I think it was a comparison video, and I had a question asked of me by, and I'll read it, Teresa McFerrin. Hello, Teresa. And she said, how in the world can I get my pastels to dry? I'll answer that. I've used different fixatives and cannot ever get them to dry. I've got 2 sets of them. I don't really want to give them away. Please don't, please don't. I was so excited to buy them. Help in big capital letters. And I'll show you that on screen. So Teresa, the truth is you cannot get your oil pastels to dry normally. You can get some dryness out of them if you give them a couple of days and preferably a week or more. There will be some curing of the oil pastel and they will dry to a certain extent. But they will never ever dry completely. Now there are ways to get them dry and I'm going to go through them, but I'm going to combine this with how to store your oil pastels. So I would say one of the best ways to store your oil pastels is to obviously do the oil pastel and then get a Sennelier oil pastel book, because they have all this stuff that looks like trace and paper, cellulose type paper, and that protects your oil pastels, so it doesn't matter if they dry, they're not going to come to any harm. And you can get that in different sized pads, so that's a good way of storing them if you're not framing them, which brings me to the next thing. The best thing to do is to frame them completely. You don't have to put fixatives or varnishes on them if you are framing them, but be sure to double mount them, in my opinion. Because if you only single mount them and the back of the frame gets compressed somehow, or the glass gets compressed, it can make the glass pick up some of that oil pastel. Just the same with soft pastels. So that then brings me on to fixatives and varnishes. There are many varnishes or fixatives on the market. Not that many for oil pastels as it happens. But it doesn't mean to say you have to use an oil pastel varnish or fixative. You can actually use a normal varnish or fixative. But of course, you're going to have to test this, because I cannot guarantee that all of them would work. However, there are a few oil pastel fixatives on the markets, come varnishes. And there's a new one out by Crepas. And I've got to say, it's exceptionally expensive. I don't feel that unless you're a top professional, you really need to pay that out. However, there are others. The most well-known one is the Sennelier brand, which is this one here. That's a fixative, but it also works as a varnish. And this will dry your oil pastels out. The problem you might encounter is that this is not compatible completely with all oil pastels. And I cannot remember the oil pastel I used, but this did not do what it said on the tin. I mean, obviously it's made for Sennelier oil pastels, and you can use it for many other brands of oil pastels, but it will not work on every single oil pastels. If, to my memory, I think it was a thicker type of oil pastel that I put on, and it didn't completely work. However, this is a great choice for most people. If you just want to store it and you're not that bothered about selling your artwork or keeping them for any other reason, then you could possibly get away with 1 coat, but I would always recommend 2, possibly 3. So there's that varnish there. Now I'm going to show you this painting that I did, well, probably over a year ago now. This is actually Holbein oil pastels, so a slightly harder oil pastel, but it doesn't make any difference. It could be any oil pastel. Now, I have had this in one of those vinyl portfolios that artists have. I've had that kicking about in there. I've pulled it out a few times because I thought I might get it framed. I just haven't yet. And I haven't took any special measures with it. I've just had it kicking about in there. I've pulled it in and out, and it's come to absolutely no harm. So how have I done that? I've actually used the Talons varnish. Now that is a varnish and fixative, no different really to the Sennelier oil pastel fixative. However, this one gives you a slightly different finish. Whereas the Sennelier gives you a nice kind of a vinyl type feel to it and a satin look, this one gives you a satin look. And if you can remember in the old days when we used to take photographs and they had that kind of grainy look to them, which I thought was rather nice, this will give you that. It won't, I mean, don't get me wrong, it won't look grainy, it will look nice, but it will look more of a flat finish. And for me, I really like that. I really do like that. It doesn't look thick. It gives it a nice satin sheen and a nice thin sheen, because this is quite watery stuff. Now, there is a problem with this in that Talons even don't really know how to use it. You can mix it with water. I would never go more than 50-50 with this though. Talons cannot answer that. I had to do all that myself because they said one thing and then they said another. So if they'd like to get in touch with me, I'd like to teach them how to use it. That is one I would really recommend, in all honesty. I like that the best out of all the fixatives come varnishes that I use. I just feel it gives me a nice finish, and I do really love the thin layer of it. You won't get brush strokes or anything like that. And I haven't come across an oil pastel that hasn't worked with as yet. So the other thing that I've bought, and I haven't actually used this yet, is this Sennelier bottle of oil pastel fixative. Now this bottle is a 1 litre bottle, I believe, and I can't actually see it. Yes, this is a 1 litre bottle, and that is Sennelier oil pastel fixative. Now I cannot tell you for certain whether this is exactly the same stuff in here as it is in this can. I am going to presume it is. I've yet to use it and I'm really excited by this. This is exceptionally expensive. So this is a 400ml can and this is a 1 litre bottle. This is probably 16 to 20 pounds. This one is in excess of 50 odd pounds. But the advantage for me is that I can now use a brush with this. I don't have to spray it on. I could spray it on. I can put it in a sprayer and spray it on. I wouldn't recommend that though, because you could encounter problems. But you can lay this on with a brush in much the same way you would the Talons. So I kind of like that. And there are other advantages to this, which is a technique that I will be coming up with. But that won't be until I get to 3,000 subscribers. That all said, I'm almost at 2,000. I think I'm about 28 off now, 2,000, and I have promised you I'm going to show you my favourite blender. Don't get too excited, it's not that spectacular, but it's good. And at 3,000 subscribers, I'm going to tell you more about a technique that I use, which is just going to send you into the stratosphere. So let's recap on that. Frame them wherever you can. If you can't, let them dry for probably a week. They will not ever dry out completely. Perhaps put some cellulose type paper over it. It looks like trace and paper. You could use trace and paper or baking paper or the stuff that's in the Sennelier pad. Use any of them. They're all kind of the same. Just make sure you use the shiny side of the baking paper. And you can just store them in a portfolio or a box somewhere. You can use a fixative, come varnish. If you're not going to use oil pastel specific, then test them out first. You can use the Talons varnish. That is one of my favourites. And of course there's that bottle as well. Be aware that not all oil pastels are going to work with all varnishes. Your oil pastels are never going to dry out unless you put them on top. And then you can forget about them then. It would be interesting, Teresa, to know what oil pastels you are actually using so that I could try and give you a more specific answer on what's best for you. But don't throw them away. You've got no need to throw them away. And it would be quite a sad day if you did, because of course it sounds to me like most people, you've got quite a lot to learn about oil pastels, and that's the fun of the adventure, isn't it? So please keep watching the channel, and I'm sure I'll be coming up with more tips. Now, I've done this video and I've answered Teresa's question, and I'm quite happy to do that, but if I could just draw your attention to the fact that I do have memberships, and in them memberships I have promised to answer questions, and as a priority question, and sometimes as a personal individual question. If you go for the top tier, you also get critiques once a month. I can't remember what's in every tier, but there's 3 tiers, and they give you different things. Starting at $1.99 a month. And if there is a particular video you like, please give a super thanks. It all helps, because I'm going to be honest with you now, YouTube does not pay a lot, and I'm pretty much only doing this for fun. But I love telling people how to use oil pastels and all the other mediums that I use. I'm going to be coming up with an acrylic video again soon. So I hope that has helped you, Teresa, and it's my pleasure. And yeah, give it a go. What I will say is, your normal fixatives, like your soft pastel fixative, pastel pencil fixatives, they don't work. But you can use them just to give yourself a little bit of tooth, a little bit of extra tooth. So that's an added tip for you. They won't dry your oil pastels out though. So I hope that's helped you, Teresa, and everybody else who's watching. And please look at my memberships. Please subscribe. It's been a slow process. I need to get to that 2,000 before Christmas, and then I can share my tip with you. So that'll be my Christmas present to you. And until next time, wherever you are, please have a great day, a great week, and a great year. And of course, always be kind. Bye for now. An acrylic video again soon. So I hope that has helped you to